Major spoilers for The Last Jedi are here, so if you haven't seen the movie but plan to, you might want to return to this video after seeing the movie. With that out of the way, let's begin. Now, if you've seen the movie, you'll be forgiven if you thought that the title of this video is misleading. After all, Snoke was killed in the middle of The Last Jedi. But if we accept Snoke's death as final, basically all of that hype over the last 2 years since The Force Awakens over who Snoke was basically goes down the toilet. And even though Snoke showed off his power a few times in the movie, thus proving he was no Trevor Slattery, his handling in The Last Jedi is reminiscent of Iron Man 3's handling of the Mandarin.
20 minutes. No.
I am the Media Dunce, and today I will explain the possibility that Snoke might still have been active by the end of The Last Jedi. First, we have to look at how Snoke could still be around despite his bisecting. For that, we need to look at legends. After his initial death on the second Death Star, Emperor Palpatine was able to use a force power called Essence Transfer to move his consciousness to a couple clone bodies he had stashed away somewhere. However, each clone body kept deteriorating on him, so he made a final effort to possess the body of Anakin Solo. He failed, but he tried. That is Legends, and The Last Jedi is canon. However, as Ahsoka said in Rebels, and we see that in Ben Solo's transformation into Kylo Ren as analogous to Legends character Jaqen Solo's transformation into Darth Caedus. Now that we have established how Snoke could have survived, we now need to look at evidence that hints that he did in fact survive in this way. The first piece of evidence is the Force bond between Kylo Ren and Rey that Snoke claims credit for making. The fact that this bond exists at the end of this movie, after Snoke's physical demise, strongly hints that Snoke is still around in some form, maintaining the bond. Now, you could argue that Snoke lied, and that the Force bond that exists was the will of the Force itself, and thus would definitely outlast Snoke. You could very well be right, as none of the arguments I have definitely disproves such a theory, but hear me out. We know from The Phantom Menace that Anakin Skywalker was conceived from the Force itself. We can conclude this. What we can't conclude, however, is that Anakin's conception was a one-time thing. There could be multiple children throughout the saga and galaxy who were conceived the way Anakin was, but were never discovered the way Anakin was. Furthermore, the precise nature of the Force bond is way too precise for me. The fact that it was able to sustain itself the way it did suggests that some powerful entity was maintaining it. That powerful entity was Snoke. Besides, once Anakin was conceived, he was conceived. The Force needed to do no more to maintain his existence like it would have for the Force bond. The second piece of evidence is Kylo Ren's saber skills against the Praetorian Guards versus his saber skills against his uncle on Crait. Against the Guards, he was phenomenal. Against his uncle, or the projection of his uncle, he was clumsy. In fact, I was actually afraid this would happen. The sheer contrast between Ren's skills strongly suggests that Snoke took over Ren, or began the process of taking over Ren, after the Praetorian Guard skirmish. Before that, Kylo Ren was in control of his body, whereas he and Snoke were wrestling for control on Crait. This leads me to the third piece of evidence. Star Wars rhymes, and in the original trilogy, Darth Vader could never defeat the Emperor. Not as Darth Vader anyway. As Anakin Skywalker, on the other hand, the Emperor was defeated. I believe that Kylo Ren could never have defeated Snoke. At the beginning of the movie, when Kylo stood up in anger, Snoke swatted him away like a fly. It was not Kylo Ren seeking to become Supreme Leader who killed Snoke, but Ben Solo seeking to save Rey. Likewise, it was not Darth Vader seeking to become Emperor who killed Palpatine, but Anakin Skywalker seeking to save his son Luke. This leads me to the fourth piece of evidence. The First Order learned from the Empire's mistakes. We see this in improved TIE fighters, better trained stormtroopers, and improved Star Destroyer designs. Snoke knew that Ben Solo was putting up a fight against Kylo Ren. If Snoke was so confident about what Kylo was about to do, why was he so wrong? He wasn't. Darth Vader was far more dominant over Anakin Skywalker than Kylo Ren was over Ben Solo. Yet, given what had happened on Death Star 2, for Snoke to be caught flat-footed the way he was would have been a direct contradiction of the First Order learning from the Empire's mistakes. Snoke allowed it to happen because he wanted to test Ben Solo's skills with a lightsaber, and then help Kylo Ren overpower Ben Solo. That is why the character became clumsy and desperate. Ben Solo could fight back enough that Kylo Ren appeared clumsy and unstable on Crate, but not enough to avoid appearing full-blown evil. And then Snoke activated the bond again at the end. Ben Solo needed to see Rey reject him so that he would become submissive to Ren and Snoke, just like Padme needed to die so that Anakin would become consumed by Darth Vader. But what is your opinion? Did Snoke allow himself to be killed so that he could take over Kylo Ren? Or is this wishful thinking on my part and Snoke really is gone from the picture? If you have any thoughts, feel free to leave them down in